Hello and welcome to Hot Topic, S3 TV's discussion programme covering the controversial, the political and the provocative issues in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. I'm Hugh Richie. This time we hear from one of the region's veteran members of Parliament. Austin Mitchell has represented Great Grimsby for Labour since 1977. Back then he described himself as a Gatescalite, which perhaps ages him a little, and since then he's campaigned on issues as diverse as televising Parliament, he's for it, and the European Union, he's against. In 2002, he temporarily changed his name to Austin Haddock to promote that noble fish. And in 2007, his defence of a family of asylum seekers in Grimsby caused some constituents offence when he called them lumpen lunatics. He's elected to the present Parliament with a majority of just 714. Austin Mitchell, welcome and thank you so much for coming on the programme. I'd like to start, if I may, by talking about the biggest issue in Grimsby, which is the economy and our rate of unemployment, which is so much higher than it is in the rest of the country.
Well, you're right to begin with that. I mean, that is the hot topic for Grimsby. We need development, and in fact, I'm hoping that S3 television and this kind of programme will encourage development because, you know, it'll give us a stimulus and it allows local people to say what they want and allows the area to speak for itself. And I think that's a big factor in encouraging development. But the real problem is that, well, a number of problems. We are or have been a one industry town. And when fishing collapsed in the 1970s, in common with areas like the coal towns or the coal villages and steel towns, the plug was pulled out of the economy and high unemployment developed. Secondly, we've got an isolation problem in the sense that it's difficult to attract firms. They tend to want to go to the big cities and particularly now into the south. And I think thirdly, the impact of government cuts under this government, which has not invested enough and has cut Labour's plans for regional development and regional investment. And the cuts and benefits have taken about 70 million out of the town, and a lot of civil servants, public servants, their jobs have gone, so unemployment therefore increases. We have a real problem. The answer is development, the answer is government spending, the answer is particularly investment in new industry. We're constantly encouraging new industries to come here. We've got, for instance, Morrison's doing their own fish filleting and developing their own fish factory. That's a good thing. We've got various small engineering developments. The big hope is wind energy. Make this the whole of Humberside the energy centre for the UK, as it used to be for coal, etc. And we're working hard to get wind energy here.
You say that first point you make, that this was a one industry town, and if there's no industry now here, if wind energy might be the replacement for that because of Grimsby's location. Food development might be the location of that, again because of Grimsby's location. But when you speak of government spending, if you create jobs in Grimsby that are government-employed jobs, you're losing jobs from some other part of the country.
For instance, we need to subsidise jobs for young people. Why shouldn't the government provide a big subsidy and a holiday and national insurance payments for employing young people? Because we have a horrendous youth problem in unemployment. But government spending, I mean, it takes all forms. But one way is bringing civil servants' jobs, public service jobs into Grimsby. The other way is to spend more on education, so there are more jobs for doctors, nurses, teachers, public servants of all kinds who spend and stimulate the economy. But I think new industry, the range of what will come is fairly limited, and wind energy is the best one. We are developing both the plant in Hull, which will have a spin-off job here. Siemens haven't yet signed the contract, but there'll be other developments like that, and they'll come to the South Bank as well. We shall do the supply work and we shall do the maintenance work from the fish dock, and we shall have, I hope, the able UK development further down the river, which will provide factory space for manufacturing wind turbines and dock space for shipping them into the North Sea.
I'll come to the energy and the natural energy prospects in a moment, but just that first point again, if the economy of Grimsby is regenerated by government-created employment, is that not once again making Grimsby a one-industry town, and that industry
No,
being
it
government?
doesn't. It's diversity, because we have the food industry already. There's some engineering, we shall have wind energy, and there's the chemical industries on the Humber Bank. So we have diversity. It's just that we just don't have enough. We need more plants, more jobs, more development, more investment, and we need things like direct rail communication with London, so that firms will come here.
Until then, there is an element of a degree of unemployment in Grimsby. We have last month 5.5% on job seekers allowance compared to an average of 3.2% in the country. So until the new industries can come and take up that slack, how are we treating those people who can't find work?
Well, we've treated very badly. This government has slanted all its spending to the south. If you look at local government is a source of employment, and we need the services local government provides, but it's had to face a cut over 3 years of 26% in local government financing. That's monstrous. That means it's shedding jobs, it's shedding functions, and it means that money isn't coming into the town. Any money coming into the town, I mean, I don't care whether you drop it from a helicopter, frankly, as long as it drops on Grimsby, but money coming into the town stimulates demand, people buy things in the shops. If we build houses, and that's the key development we need here, building houses that public housing for rent, either council or social housing owned by the Housing Association. But in fact, the Housing Association finances have been cut. We need more houses.
But we don't have enough houses for people to live in, and perhaps one
We
of the
don't
ways...
have enough modern houses, up-to-date houses, good houses.
Perhaps one of the ways of making sure that more bedrooms have beds in is the government's present policy of cutting the subsidy to paying the rent of people with spare rooms.
That is a monstrous tax, the bedroom tax.
Is it a tax or is it a cut and a subsidy?
We had a debate last week in Parliament. Frankly, it was one of the worst debates I've ever heard, and there was no meeting of minds between the two sides at all. Some of the Liberals voted with the Labour Party, rightly too. But what the bedroom tax does, it forces people who have spare space, which they might need for a dialysis machine, or they might need for a carer, or they might need so their kids can come home, separated couples, for the weekend. They might need for all sorts of reasons. If they keep the room, they face a cut in housing benefit of 14%, which is a lot of money for some people. And if they have 2 rooms, it's 25%. And so it goes on. Now that makes a difference to their standard of living. What are people to do in that situation? There aren't the 1-bedroom small houses that they want. Shoreline transfers them in some cases. They stay and spend less and have less money to exist, or they try and move and pay a higher rent in the private sector and therefore claim more housing benefits. So it's a self-defeating policy. Now that Shoreline says that about 2/3 of their customers, their residents, are now in rent arrears. That means that Shoreline has got less money coming in. It can borrow less because it relies on its income for borrowing. Therefore, it will build less houses. It's a stupid policy.
If I may just stop you, if the Liberal backbench MPs were voting against the coalition government on this matter,
I think 4 of them.
Is there a possibility that this could be an issue in which the government fails to get its vote?
Oh no, I think they'll carry on. I mean, they're going to hang together, or they hang separately, as the saying goes. So I think this coalition will last until May 2015.
And thank you very much, Austin. We must stop there for a moment, and we'll be back in 1 moment. Please join us after the break for more from Austin Mitchell. Welcome back. You're watching Hot Topic on Estuary TV, where I've been talking to Austin Mitchell, Member of Parliament for Great Grimsby. Mr. Mitchell, the great economic hope for the Humber is natural energy. There are complaints there. People dislike some of the aspects of it. People in the countryside especially hate the wind farms. Is this NIMBYism? Well,
I think that's silly, actually. They are making a lot of landowners fairly rich. We had some figures from Scotland where people who put 40 wind turbines on their land develop a fortune. But I mean, I think we've got to diversify energy sources. The problem is we've got to close down a lot of, and Europe's making us do this, close down a lot of the coal-fired stations. The nuclear stations are, their lifespan really has been extended too far and need to close down in the next 5 years. So there is a need for alternative energy. Now this could be, I hope it will be, the green energy estuary for the United Kingdom. And I think that's the role we've got to develop, because there's not only wind power, and we're a natural place for putting turbines out into the North Sea and for servicing them and maintaining them, but we've also got biomass at tracks, which is another form of energy generation. And we've got the prospect of ethanol production from wheat in Immingham. So there are various alternatives, and I think we should go for them all.
Can clean energy be for Grimsby what cod once were?
Well, sorry?
Can green energy be for Grimsby what fishing once was?
Well, I've heard some people say we could be the new Aberdeen, and I would very much like that. Aberdeen is very prosperous. My colleagues in Aberdeen tell me that unemployment is only about 2% in Aberdeen. Now that's a situation I'd want in Grimsby. I think we could, but it's a bitterly contested field, and there's places up and down the east coast, and indeed the west coast with developments in the Irish Sea, which are competing for this. And we're the natural place, I think, the best place for service and the best place for installation. So I hope we'll win it, but it isn't certain.
You mentioned Aberdeen there, and that brings me on to another issue, the nature of nationalism in this country and our membership of the European Union, which you find irksome. Scotland, the Scottish nationalists find their membership of the United Kingdom irksome. What is the consequence for the Labour Party, whose numbers are largely made up from Scottish members of Parliament? What is the consequence for the Parliamentary Labour Party if Scotland leaves the Union? I
think the consequence is probably rigor mortis. I mean, sorry, I'm joking, but it is gloomy, because so many of our MPs come from Scotland, are elected in Scotland. And we share common problems with Scotland. I mean, the problem of industrial decline is one that we share with Scotland. Now, if Scotland becomes independent, if it opts for Home Rule, then we're left to fight that battle on our own in the North, and the North is suffering already under this Conservative government. So I think for the future of a Labour government, it becomes a very dire prospect because of the loss of Labour MPs from Scotland. And I think from the North, it becomes an argument that we too should have devolution so we can control our own destinies and run things for ourselves. Well, you know, I campaign for Home Rule for, not Home Rule, but devolution for Yorkshire and Humberside in the 90s. And that was rejected in a referendum which was held in the northeast. But it will come back. And if Scotland opts for Home Rule, then we are next in the queue.
So you think that, firstly, if Scotland goes for Home Rule, there's no possibility ever of a Labour majority government in England again?
I wouldn't say that, because I think this government is making such a mess of it. There's still good prospects for the Labour Party, but it's much weaker prospects. So let's not abandon hope entirely, but let's just say the Labour Party isn't helped by Scottish devolution.
And your regionalism would be for what, the whole of the North as one separate state? Is it secession?
I think we'd have to regard the North as one area under the old Council of the North, and that would be Yorkshire, Humberside, the North West, and the North East as an area as with a devolution and with their own powers to develop in their own way.
And if you were the secessionist Jefferson Davis of the northern state, as it were, would the new nation of the north of England remain within the within the European Union?
Perennial issue. I'm in favour of a referendum on Europe. It is an undemocratic set of institutions. It is now the high unemployment, low growth black spot of the world because of the euro, which is having a disastrous deflationary effect on the Mediterranean economies, on places like Ireland indeed, and on Italy and on Spain, and certainly on Greece, which it's a deflation too painful for electorates to bear. So they'll have at some stage to stop it. At the moment, it's also undermining growth in Germany, which is very low, because people can't afford to buy all the BMWs any longer in Southern Europe. And in France, it's gone negative. So they'll have to do something. Now, certainly, I'm in favour of withdrawal from Europe. I mean, I think it's an enormous economic burden. We have to pay £10 billion, 10 billion across the exchanges. This is for a country in trade deficit to belong to this club, and we could do better outside it. That isn't a widespread view.
No.
But a referendum will allow the people to be consulted. They have a right to be heard.
But if the widespread endemic problem of the European economy, especially within the Eurozone itself, is one in which the shared currency means that countries involved can't escape. We don't share the currency, so do we not get the trade benefit, and many British businessmen would say so, that we get the trade benefit of having a free trading zone with Europe without having being dragged down by a currency that can't support itself?
That's not true. I mean, the single currency has been an enormous disadvantage for Europe, and it's been a disaster, frankly, because you can't have a single currency without a single budget, and the others won't give the power up to Brussels to rule their budgets as national states. And secondly, you can't have it without some machinery of redistribution, helping the poor states, as we help in the United Kingdom, the poorer regions, like us. But Germany won't pay for that, so the euro is not going to work, right? If we withdrew, and it would have to be on the verdict of a referendum, the people have a right to speak, then trade would continue as per usual. I mean, they're not going to put up barriers against us. They're not going to say, we're not buying your products. You couldn't do that. We'd actually, in trading deficit with them, they sell us more than we sell them. So if they do try sanctions, we could certainly hit back. Secondly, we wouldn't have to pay for their overpriced food, which is putting up food prices still. And thirdly, we'd be able to catch our own fish in our own waters, which we would control. So all the benefits, and we wouldn't have to pay 10 billion a year.
We sold those quotas to the Europeans, those fish quotas. They didn't get stolen from us. We took them for consideration, for value in a contractual agreement.
It's not up to you to preach pro-European propaganda.
I'm not preaching anything.
I'm not testing either.
Testing your sermon.
I think we'd be better off out. But the people have a right to be heard. They haven't spoken on this issue since 1975. Most people haven't voted on it. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with Europe, which I share, and let's consult them. It won't be a dire threat. We shan't be losing jobs. The trade with Europe will still go on, but hopefully we shall be able to manage it our own way rather than being in deficit as we are now. So I think, it's unfair to attack it from that point of view and unrealistic.
Austin, may I just, final question. What are your career plans in the next election?
My career plans are to go on serving Grimsby. I love serving Grimsby. I mean, if I was going to stand down, this is 2015, we're talking about May now, I certainly wouldn't say so, and I wouldn't say so now. And you have to bear in mind for an MP, as soon as you say, I'm not going to be an MP any longer, you're dead. I don't want to be dead.
Well, nor do I. Austin Mitchell, I don't want you to be dead either. Austin Mitchell, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us for another hot topic next time. Goodbye.